Well, today, class, we are going to talk about how the world was formed, okay? It all began millions and millions and millions of years ago. Long before the dinosaurs ever walked the earth. Long before mankind evolved from its ape-like ancestors. The world was formed in one of the great cosmic mysteries of all time.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes, Mr. Taylor. What is it this time?
Well, I'm a little confused by your reference to the age of the Earth's birth. There are a number of scientific measurements that place the actual age of the Earth as a little less than a few thousand years old.
Well, is that so? Well, could you possibly name one of these so-called scientific measurements? Huh?
Well, based on the theory that the world was millions of years old, NASA scientists expected to find that the dust collecting on the moon's surface to be many feet thick. They were even afraid about losing the first moon lander in the dust. But when Neil Armstrong stepped off that moon lander, the whole world saw that the dust was only a few inches thick. This supports the idea that the world is only a few thousand years old.
A very interesting tale, Mr. Taylor. Now, could you please sit down and don't interrupt me again, okay? Thank you. It's a pleasure. All right. Now, as I was saying, the world was created out of a series of random events that formed all life on the world today as we know it.
Excuse me, Mr. Patrick.
Yes, Miss Smith.
Well, there is another theory on how the world was created.
Well, evolution over time is the only true scientific explanation of the creation of the world and the development of mankind.
But the Bible says that God created everything.
Now hold it right there, young lady. The Bible is a religious book, and therefore we are forbidden by law to discuss religion in the public school. Now, as I was saying...
Mr. Patrick.
What is it, Mr. Taylor?
Well, the Supreme Court ruled in Tinker versus Des Moines School District in 1969 that students do not have to shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate.
What?
Since the First Amendment prohibits the government from making laws that restrict religion, a public school cannot prevent a student from expressing their religion. So sorry.
Mr. Taylor, I thought I told you to sit down. Okay? All right.
But seriously, Mr. Patrick,
Uh,
more things are proven to be true that the Bible says every single year by scientists and archaeologists. Why can't we just study about what the Bible says on how the world was created?
because, Miss Smith, in order for a biblical account of creation to be true, we would require the existence of an all-knowing, all-powerful God. That's why we don't study it.
I don't understand.
Okay. Let's take these in little baby steps, all right? Okay. How many of you think that we should talk about the myth of divine creation, myth, alongside the scientific facts of the theory of evolution? Oh, great. All right. I see. Okay, well, in this class, Miss Smith, we focus on hard scientific fact. Now let's begin with the census test, shall we? There's sight, there's sound, right? There's touch, and there's, well, taste. Okay?
Okay.
Let's apply these to God, shall we? All right?
Okay.
Tell me how many of you in this room have ever seen God? I thought so. All right, let's move on to the next one, okay? All right. All right then. How many of you have ever felt God?
Whenever I pray, I can feel His presence. It feels like someone giving me a big hug.
Mr. Taylor.
I know. Down.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, and what are the other tests, Miss Smith? Huh? Have you ever smelled your God? Have you ever tasted Him? Well then, we can conclusively prove that there is no God. Therefore, there can be no creation story. And are you now finally willing to drop this?
Well, I guess so. Wait, 1 minute. You said that in this room, we could only do things that were proven to be true by scientific fact, right?
That is correct.
Well then, has anyone in this room ever seen Mr. Patrick's brain? Has anyone in this room ever smelled it? Has anyone in this room ever touched his brain? Has anyone in this room ever tasted Mr. Patrick's brain? Well then, since it doesn't even pass the most basic of the senses test, we can therefore scientifically conclude that Mr. Patrick has no brain.
Enough! Enough! All right. You all think you're so very smart now, don't you? Well, we'll just see how smart you all are, very smart even, all right? Because I'm going to bring the principal in here. That's right. Oh, yes. We're just going to see just how smart you all really are, all right? I'm going to bring in the principal, and we're going to see just how smart you all are. We're going to see. That's right. Just how smart you all really are. Yes. We'll see.
Did they call my parents?
Hello, class. Mr. Patrick, well, he's going to need a little time off for the rest of the day. I think he's under a little bit of stress. So I'm more than willing to step in today and fill in for the rest of his class. Now, can somebody tell me what you were talking about?
Well, we were talking about how the world was created and the creation story, but Mr. Patrick said we couldn't include that in the discussion.
Well, Ashley, technically he is correct. Really, in a public school, you're not supposed to discuss the Bible or things of religious topics unless the students bring up that topic to discuss.
Mrs. Volger,
Yes, Isaac?
we'd like to talk about how God created everything.
Yeah, you would. Well, I'll tell you, Isaac, I don't have a problem with that. So since you brought up that topic, let's start with, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.